Are we live? Okay, well, I want to welcome everybody to the Libertarian Party of Indiana's orientation for new delegates. We have several people here in the room with us, including Joe Hauptmann, Mark Rutherford, Drew Bassan, Bill Bean, who's the chair of the Indianapolis-Marion County Party, Indiana State Chair Tim McGuire, and myself. I anticipate other people can be straggling in a little bit later after a tough Friday night in Indianapolis. And what we're going to do today is, for the next hour and a half or so, is kind of go over what new delegates, new alternates, new people who attend a national convention or maybe only been to one can expect as they walk in the door and are overwhelmed with what is now up to over 1,200 people that are in the delegate database. That I think, and Joe Hauptmann, who's sitting to my right here, could probably reinforce this, it's probably the biggest off-year convention we've ever had, right, Joe?
I would say absolutely.
Yeah, and it's coming close to rivaling the Orlando convention, which I think was the biggest convention we'd ever had. So it shows the good stuff the party's done over the past couple of years. Of course, we've got some controversies going on, some hotly contested officer races, but there's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of stuff to do. The first thing I'd like to do is kind of go over what the process is when you arrive at the hotel and check in. Tim, can you put the map up there for me of the Hyatt? You should be able to pick up when you walk into the hotel a map of the Hyatt, or you'll find your way up to the third floor. Can you scroll down, Tim, to where the third floor is, where it says Celestine Ballroom? Keep going a little bit. Right there, okay? So, and everybody can see this, I assume? Okay, so this is where the bulk of the convention activities are going to be. The Celestine Ballroom, the whole area, which is well over 22,000 square feet, is now going to be the convention hall. We've had such a good feedback and a good advanced registration for this convention that we've had to expand into the entire Celestine Ballroom. The meals were originally going to be where it says G&H over there on the left, but we've had to move meals to a different facility down in the bottom of the hotel because we needed that space for the additional delegates that we didn't anticipate at first. Over to the right, where it says Storyville Hall, is the first place that you'll want to go. Within that hall, and I don't have that diagram now, but this is on the third floor. As you go past the lobby, you'll go up some escalators. You go up to the third floor of the hotel, and back in the back right-hand corner there, you'll see Storyville Hall, and that is where credentialing and registration for the convention is going to be. Your first stop will most likely be at the registration desk, which if you've purchased a package for the convention, you will get all your tickets, your name badge, all the stuff that pertains to you being a paid attendee at the convention. You'll also pick up a convention bag that will have a 139-page convention book in it with all the stuff you'll need to know for the convention. And you also, and if you've not purchased a package at that point in time, we still have some packages left to sell. We've not sold out of anything yet, but we're coming close. And if you don't want to buy a package, you could always get into the business meetings for free. That's part of our bylaws. But you can, if you want to, I think for $25, pick up the convention book that gives you detailed explanations of everything at the convention, including a précis of Robert's Rules of Order, of our special convention rules, and anything else that you might possibly want to know about how the convention's going on and what's occurring when. So your first stop is at Storyville Hall to register, and then you will go over to the credentials desk if you are appointed by your state as either a delegate or alternate. To check in as a credentialed delegate, you will receive a delegate ribbon at that desk, or an alternate ribbon. I think they have alternate ribbons. And then you're good to go to enjoy the rest of the convention. Joe, anything you want to add about the checking in process? Or they can't see you anyway because the map is up there.
Other than make sure you've got your patient, because usually the desks are staffed by a limited number of people, and everyone is just trying to get in and get through. So bring your phone, make sure you got some Candy Crush to play or something while you're waiting.
Okay. Tim, anybody have any questions? And as we go through this, I can't see you guys asking questions. So Tim is going to either, if you speak on your microphone, Tim will hear you through his headphones, or he'll relay them to me.
I've got everybody muted.
Okay.
So they need to type it in.
Okay, so Tim says everybody on the call other than I guess me is muted. So if you would type in your question where in the little right-hand box down there that says chat, and I'd be more than happy to respond. So does anybody have any questions now about the registration or credentialing process?
And I'll open it up to let people unmute themselves at the end.
Okay.
If they have any questions.
Okay. The next thing I want to share with everybody is the convention schedule and agenda. I'm sure that's what you're most interested in. And I'm going to ask Tim to bring that file up on the computer now. Page 1, which is the proposed business meeting agenda. Yeah, that's it. So let me get this group chat thingy off here so I can see it. This is one of the 139 pages of the program book that you'll get when you check in at registration. It basically has what the convention committee and the national chair, Nick Sarwak, have proposed as the agenda for the business meeting. As with all agendas, it could be amended by the delegates once the meeting starts, but it has basically the order of activities of the business meeting as mandated by the bylaws. Tim, you want to skim down just to the next couple pages there? Beyond that, you'll see in the convention book all the other activities that are going to happen in the convention. That includes somewhere around 35 or 40 breakout sessions with dozens and dozens of great speakers. There are activities going on throughout each day, including what we're calling day 0, which is Saturday, June 30th for you arriving early. There's a whole plethora of activities, some of which, if there's an asterisk by an activity, that is for paid attendees only. If it says it's an open event, that means anybody could come. And we've added several open events on day 30 for those of you arriving at New Orleans a day before the convention starts. There were also, for those of you who are really interested in the making of the sausage kind of stuff, there will be a bylaws committee meeting in the middle of the day. There will be a platform committee meeting starting at 10 o'clock. And then the last LNC meeting of this term will be from 4 to 6 p.m. That's usually a perfunctory meeting, but if you've not actually seen an LNC meeting in action and you're really bored, you might want to come and see us meet at the end of the term. There are, as you can see, dozens and dozens of different things to do. Many of these run simultaneously with the business meeting. If you're a delegate, you're going to have to make a choice. Do you want to go to a workshop on ending the war on drugs, for instance, or do you want to sit in and listen to the platform committee debate or bylaws debate and participate in those? People will make choices, and we have a wealth of different kinds of things for you to go to. In the evenings, the first evening of the convention on Sunday, July 1st, is when the debate for chair and vice chair officers will be. They will be set according to rules set by the convention committee, promulgated by Ken Molman, who's of Kentucky, who's organizing the debates. And debates each are currently scheduled for an hour and a half each. If there are only a limited number of candidates for one of the two offices, we might cut that if there's a lot more candidates for the other of those two offices. Speaking of the debates, if you are a registered delegate for the convention, when you pick up your convention package, you will be given a bunch of stuff. In there will be 3, what we're calling tokens. The first token that you'll see probably is on the entire platform of the Libertarian Party. And our bylaws say that if you want to delete a particular platform plank, check off that box and put it in the platform plank token box, which I think is either going to be at the secretary's desk or at the registration desk. And that will be the first order of business as soon as we come to the platform debate as to whether the delegates have voted whatever percentage it is to specifically remove or to debate for removal, one of the platform planks. The other 2 things you'll see are tokens for entry into the vice chair and into the chair debate the evening of Sunday, July 1st. The convention committee set the rules, and I did not vote on this since I'm running for vice chair. I recused myself from that debate and voting. The convention committee set rules for participation in the debate as each candidate that will participate in the debate will be in the top 5 candidates getting votes for that position or getting tokens for that position, and also must have a minimum of 5% of the total delegates that are registered to the convention as of the first order of business, Sunday, July 1st. The tokens will be collected all day, I believe, at the secretary's table at the front of the convention hall, and then they will be counted at 3 p.m. There will be no advance counts, and the delegates are strongly encouraged to put their own tokens in that box themselves. There will be a blank spot on the token for you, fill in the name of the person that you want to be in the debate, and you're not really encouraged to trade those, to give those to anybody else. It's up to you as a responsible member of the Libertarian Party and a delegate to the convention from your state to write in your own choice and put your own token into the ballot box, wherever they may be located. Joe, I'm kind of monopolizing the conversation. Anything you want to add to my monologue so far?
Only in regards to the platform token. This goes back to the idea that unless the majority of the delegates support something in the platform, we shouldn't have it there. So if a majority of people vote to remove a plank, what will happen is there will be a single up-down debate. It'll involve no amendments. It is simply for the removal. Once it's removed, a plank is removed, then to replace it requires 2/3. So the idea is that if something, half the people don't like something, we can take it out. But to put something in, we have to have more of a consensus, which is 2/3.
Okay. I'm kind of going pretty fast here. Are there any questions that are being sent through to either Joe or I for the initial part of the orientation? Okay, well, we're doing a great job, so we'll keep going. Each day of the convention is packed full of stuff, from opening morning breakfast for those of you who bought packages.
I'm sorry, there is one question.
Okay.
If you're covering the credentialing table, how do you make sure your accountant is there?
If you're covering the
Covering the credentialing table.
you mean working at the convention?
It's Michelle McCutcheon.
Oh, hey, Michelle. Does that mean that you're actually working as a volunteer at the credentialing table? If that is, then you just check in as a delegate, I guess, when you start your shift, and that should recognize you as a credentialed delegate. Let us know if that does not answer your question. Or you might talk to Jane Hogarth, who's the interim chair. Does that answer? Okay. Let's see. Mark, you want to talk about parliamentary procedure for a while? All right, we're going to bring on Mark Rutherford, former Indiana State Chair, and he's going to talk about parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules of Order, and how it pertains to the convention. Please stay awake.
Well, Robert's Rules of Order isn't all that bad. And the thing about Robert's Rules of Order is that we've got a large group here. It looks like we're going to almost have a completely filled credentialed convention, close to 1,200 delegates there. And if you have that many people there, you've got to have some rules to manage it. All 1,200 of us, probably as libertarians, would not mind shouting and saying we want to do things at all the time. And that doesn't get us anywhere. The first thing you need to know, though, about Robert's Rules of Order and the convention is that Robert's Rules of Order is the default rules when there's no convention rule that's contrary to it or inconsistent with it. That's by our bylaws. Robert's Rules of Order is what we look to try to keep things flowing, give the majority the opportunity to vote on things and the minority the opportunity to say what they want to try to convince the majority to change their position on certain things. So it's very, very important that everybody know that. The other thing is that before you get there, even if you know a little bit about Roberts, is that we do have the convention rules. They were passed in Orlando every year. Every convention, they're revised a little bit. There'll probably be some revisions to meet current what goes on and what needs to be done and to meet some challenges we may have had in the past. And so read the convention rules. There are not very many of them. There's about 12 of them. They're about 2 or 3 pages total. You can get them from the website. I usually, when I want to look at them,
They will also be printed in the convention.
they'll be printed in the convention program. If you want to look at before you get there, you can just download them by do a Google search on Libertarian Party bylaws and convention rules, and There it is. You can download it, look at it. But those rules are very important because there are some things in there that are not Robert's Rules of Order. They're what we do. We like to do them, and this is what we do. Let me give you an example. For lots of things, this is how we do voting. Now, we don't do it for officers. We don't do it for president or vice president. There's some other exceptions out there too. But a lot of the stuff that will happen here will be just a voice vote. That's what we do. We do a voice vote after we've done all the procedures, all the debates. If anybody of the 1,200 people who likely will be there objects, then what happens is we go to what's called a rising vote. And a rising vote is that people stand up and there are people who help the chair count how many people have stood or are standing up. And you know, all those in favor stand up. Everybody gets counted in the ballroom is standing up. All those against stand up. Everybody gets counted. All those abstaining stand up. Everybody gets counting. Now, to do a rising vote, though, just not anybody can say, hey, I want a rising vote. It doesn't take much to get one, but you've got to have at least more than 1 or 2 disgruntled people about what the chair says is the results of the voice vote. And that is, it takes 20 delegates to say, I want a rising vote. 20 delegates to do a rising vote. That's not very many, but there have been times people said, hey, I want a rising vote, and no one stands up. Again, you have to have some nominal minority wanting to do that. So that's something for you all to be important, realize that's how we do this. No secret ballots on anything, except the officers will be by ballots with your state contingents and then reported to the secretary. So that's an important thing to know and to be familiar with those. Remember the purpose of Roberts, and I think we have a lot of delegates who do not understand Roberts and why we use some system. There's lots of systems out there, but Roberts is the one that we use. We use the most current version. And it's to allow orderly meetings, to allow people to have their say. A couple of things to understand to help you get through that: the right of the minority to be heard, the right of the majority to make decisions. And this is a big one, and you're going to see delegates there that are very irritating because they think that it's really fun to use the rules to obfuscate, confuse, play political games, etc. No, the rules are designed so that the majority can make a decision, the minority can say their piece. That is what it's about, and to get business done. Every convention I've been at, there's things I didn't like and things I liked a lot. And that's what it will be probably for most people there, and I just accept that. It's a good process, it's an orderly one, so please do that. Don't be one of those people who's getting in the way for no good purpose. The nice thing about the Libertarian Party convention is that we've usually had, in fact, all the chairs that I've been through are good chairs. Some are better than others, but they're all at a high level of running, keeping the convention and keeping the convention in order. And I don't anticipate that changing. Chairman Sarwark has already done one convention and understands the rules. We'll have people up there who really understand the rules. They'll be helping and advising him on things that might come up. And so he's going to keep it going and keep it orderly. This is not a meeting of 6 people where it's kind of free flow, which is great. The smaller the meeting, the more you should be just free flow, use the rules to occasionally get things in order if things are getting out of hand. But this is very, very important. At the convention, there'll be microphones where you can go up, stand in line, and say your piece. Number 1, the chair must recognize you. There are a couple of exceptions, which I will be abused occasionally, but the chair will probably tamp it down. But don't talk until you're recognized. There's a couple of exceptions we'll talk about where you can pipe in, but they're very limited, and I see those abused all the time. And I see people shouting this and then going into some argument. It's like, please don't waste my time. So, and I haven't said this yet, but be courteous. I mean, my gosh, there's a lot of important things to be said and a lot of important work to be done. So don't monopolize people's time unless you're ready. And I'll give you some tips how to be very effective, not monopolize people's time, but more likely to get what you want done, or at least an opportunity to do so, and have people respect you if you do decide that you need to stand up, wait at the microphone and say something, or make a motion or amend something, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, this is the basics. Now remember, this is Roberts. Roberts came out from the rules of Congress, and so there are exceptions everywhere. But if you know the basics, you're going to survive quite well. And if you haven't done this before, having a good grip on the basics will be nice. The convention handbook will have a lot of the stuff I talk about it. It'll have a neat little chart about all types of things, about what you should or shouldn't do. Do you need to be recognized by the chair? What's the vote you take on it? Is there a second required? Is there any debate? Those are things that we'll talk about in a minute. But the procedure is basically, you get recognized, you make your motion. Do not start arguing for what you want until you made the motion. Because a very important part of Roberts is, if you're just a lone wolf, we're very sorry. We have to do that. At least it takes two people to say, yeah, two people have to decide they want to do something. Out of 1,200, that's not very many. But it is a way to allow the group to do business. So you have a motion, you state it, you must be a second, somebody else who has a right to vote in the delegation. Then it's open to discussion or debate. And when that is over, and there are time limits, some are prescribed for some events in the agenda and also in the convention rules. And when that is done, then they'll go to a vote. And after the vote, you go to the next thing on the agenda. There are other things in there that we'll go into, and there are a lot of procedural things that you'll raise during that you'll, being at a Libertarian convention, you'll learn very quickly what it is. Now, you're going to be overwhelmed if you've never done this before, or you've only been in a small group, because there'll be lots of things going on, lots of people saying stuff. There's a lot of people there who do a good job and understand the rules and use the rules correctly to allow things to get done. And in some regards, it slows things down, but that's okay. If everybody was shouting, nothing would get done. You want to have this way to get this done so things are done. Now, when you make a motion and there is a second, the chair will do this. The chair, I was just shaking my head to Sam, something about I'm going to get to in a minute here. The chair will repeat the question, I'm sorry, the motion, and so that the group understands what it is. And when you have do a motion, what you're required to do is you have to have a written copy for the secretary. Before you go up to make that motion, the procedure is give a copy to the secretary, have somebody run it up to the secretary. Why is that so important? I've seen groups where they voted on a motion and no one agreed on what the motion was, the minutes are incorrect, you meet again and you really haven't decided anything, or there's confusion, and that's not what you want. You want to have the motion in writing. Once the chair repeats the motion, everybody understands it, then the person who moves gets to talk first. State your argument. Don't take too long. If you take too long, people will say, why should I listen to it? Be succinct. Have it in your mind. Have some notes there with you. Direct them, give the remarks to the chair. That's who you're really talking to. He represents the body and guides the body during this whole thing. If you're really mad at somebody, then you really should take it out of the hall and shout at them out there. Don't do it inside the hall. If you look at Congress, very rarely do they talk to each other. If they're upset, they go, Mr. Chair, I'm very upset about this certain thing that happened, and here's why. They don't go, I really hate the senator from Indiana, and I hope he dies. They don't do stuff like that. We shouldn't do it either, and sometimes you'll see it, and it's just not good and it's not helpful. If there's a desire to end the discussion, and not everybody who's in line will get to speak. So if you really need to say something, you think it's important, and it hasn't been said before, get in line as soon as you think you can. But if 2/3 of the group says, we're going to call the question, which means end the debate, end of the discussion, then it's over and you go straight to a vote. Now, a call to question, again, must be seconded like most things, not everything. It's got to be approved by 2/3. This isn't a majority. Now, I've seen this happen, and I've seen the tomfoolishness with this. We've got a huge agenda, and we need to get it done. There are a lot of people who think it's really cute to just end the convention without doing business, and they also know the rule that the motion to adjourn is always appropriate at any time. Guess what? If you adjourn before you make any decisions, then the convention's over, we're all going to go out and drink and eat, and we're going to wonder how we're going to do what we need to do for the next 2 years, and we'll have lots of fighting. Please don't do that. The motion to adjourn is appropriate when we're through the agenda. I know that there are political reasons sometimes it ended earlier, but it better be darn good if you're going to try to do that type of stuff. And most people who try to do that are just trying to be cute or funny, or they just like disrupting groups, and they shouldn't do that in my opinion. I don't like tomfoolery from the standpoint of, let's do business. If we don't like it, we vote it down, move on. Amendments are the same process and the same procedure. Basically, you move to amend. You get up there. Recognized by the chair. I move to amend by inserting the word "the" between this word and that word. There has to be a second. You then go to a debate on the amendment only. You can have a call the question to end debate on the amendment. You then have a vote. And if it passes, it now becomes what's called the main motion. The old motion no longer exists. The amended motion is now the main motion, and you go back to where you were. Debate, vote on it. You can have other amendments in there throughout there, but once you have an amendment, you go through that process till you finish the process on the amendment.
Hey, Mark,
Yes.
there's a question. Does the person making an amendment need to bring the written copy of the amendment to the
Yes.
chair as well?
Yes, because the whole idea behind that is to not be confused. And when you have a group of 1,200 people, confusion is everywhere just because it's the natural order of things. There's 1,200 strong individuals in there. Secretary and the chair need to know what that is. So that's a really good point on that. And that needs to be done. Once now there's something that you'll hear out there, and if you're into Robert's Rules of Order, and you're in a large enough group, there is no such thing as a friendly amendment. That just screws things up. Once the amendment has been made and seconded, from a technical standpoint, it belongs to the body. There's no friendly amendment. If you make a motion or you make a motion to amend, and you then went, whoops, I think that was a bad idea, and you say, I withdraw it, you can do that. But once it's seconded and the chair repeats it, end of game, it's no longer in your control. The body decides what to do with it. Don't start shouting friendly amendments. Vote the amendment down if it's that bad. And then let's go back to business. It'll be a lot quicker and a lot easier for everybody than to have the chair going, I don't know where we're at. What's this friendly amendment crap? He accepts it, he does, and what do we do? There is nothing like that. Now, that has arisen from small groups, where that may work with 5 to 12 people because it's not that confusing and it's a nice gentlemanly, womanly way to get things done. But you can't in a group of 12,000. It just doesn't work. I'm going to talk about some of the types of motions and rules that are out there real quickly. I'm not going to talk about all of them because I could come up with 60, 70, 80 different things to talk about. I'm going to talk about the ones that are generally used by libertarians, generally used by all groups. One is point of privilege. It's real simple. Don't make it what it isn't. And a lot of people pretend it's some way incredible. Oh my God, that sounds cool. It must mean I can do anything I want. No. Point of privilege means, can you ask, Mr. Chair, can you ask everybody to quiet down so I can hear the speaker? That's a point of privilege. Mr. Chair, the room's too cold. Can you ask somebody at the hotel to try to get the temperature up a little bit? That's point of privilege. That's all it is. It's nothing else. It's not an excuse for you to go in and say that so-and-so's bad, this amendment's bad, et cetera, et cetera. Don't do that. Our chairs generally will tamp that down, but don't waste our time by doing stuff like that. Wait in line and hope you get to speak your piece. Parliamentary inquiry is another thing you'll hear. Basically, that's just a fancy term for, Chair, what's the motion? Sounds really neat, but that's all it is. So don't use it for anything else. Point of information. That is heavily abused at the Libertarian Party conventions I've been at. I've been to 9 of them since 2000 in Anaheim. And that's not a permission to interrupt the chair in the process. It's very simple. I need to ask a question of the speaker, not the chair, the speaker, the person at the podium, not the podium, at the microphone. Mr. Speaker, why did you do this? That's all it is, a question for information from the speaker. If it's nothing's before the chair, it could be to the chair. Point of information, Mr. Chair. Are you going to follow the agenda? What do you think about the noise in the background? When are we going to have dinner? I mean, don't abuse it, but you're asking for information. That's all you're doing. It's not an opportunity to say, this is wrong. Because there's a way to do that if it's wrong, and that's called a point of order. A point of order is when you go say, I want to say that this is improper. This speaker is using bad decorum. If he doesn't like Mr. Rutherford, then he should go out in the hall and yell at him out there so Mr. Rutherford can yell at him there, and we don't have to listen to it. That's what that is. Or there are rules being broken. Mr. Chair, point of order, it's 2/3 votes, not a majority vote. Please decide if there's a 2/3 majority here. Orders of the day is when people get away from the agenda. And when you have 1,200 people there, it's often, just by accident, the flow of everything, you don't get to go to your agenda. If you're straying away from the agenda, that is very important. You just say, and you're going to hear this because it will happen probably, and it's nobody's fault. It just happens. Orders of the day, and that's the chair goes, yes, of course. Let's get back to the agenda item. And that's just really helps the chair out as well as helps the body get things that need to be done too. You can move to extend debate, but it's only on the current question or the current motion. It's an amendment or a motion, whatever. Divide the question is something you're going to hear a lot. Somebody just has too much in that motion. The motion has merit, but it really should be decided in 2, 3, or 4 parts. You move to divide the question. You reconsider. That is when you voted one way, but later decided, I made a mistake. You can ask to have a vote to reconsider something that's already been done. But you're going to have to be able to say, I voted for it, but I've changed my mind. Let's reconsider it. You go through the whole process, second, debate, amendments, possibly vote. This is used a lot, put on the table, postpone indefinitely, lay on the table. There are 2 things, and you have to be very clear what you want to do. If you want to postpone indefinitely and use that term, that basically means you want to kill the motion. Postpone indefinitely means you don't want to consider that or talk about this or do anything with this for the rest of the convention. Pretty big stuff. If you just want to come back to it later because you think it's in the wrong place for the agenda after people are talking about it, etc., we need to make other decisions first. You say lay on the table or suspend the motion, and that is we're going to suspend the motion, lay it on the table, and that is until somebody moves to put it back up, and that is just temporary, and that is take from the table or resume consideration of the matter. So when you're trying to table something, your words matter, and words matter in this thing. You table indefinitely, postpone indefinitely, you're killing it for the convention. It won't be, and to not be considered again until the next convention, if ever. Take from the table, lay on the table. I'm sorry, lay on the table is temporary, and you get it back by saying, I want to take from the table the motion that we had laid on the table earlier. Suspend the rule. Oh, yes.
Yeah, quick question. So talking about extending debate, is every motion, is debate limited on every motion? On every subject? It
depends on the rules that are there. There's a lot of things that are said about how we do platform and how we do bylaws that are in the convention rules. And there are some rules for like how much the presidential candidate can speak, things like that. And there usually is with the agenda, I don't know what the chair will be doing this time, where they have suggested time limits and we will approve the agenda to begin the convention. So if it's like we're going to do officers for this amount of time, once that time ends, there's got to be a motion to extend debate to keep the debate going on. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes it's necessary.
So if there's no specified time limit, then none exists.
That's correct. That's correct. And then to end it, you call the question, and 2/3 of the group decide that they've heard enough, and it's done. And I hope that answers the question. Did I do that, Tim? Can you hear? Good.
I think there are specific time limits per each platform item and bylaws.
That's by the convention rules. Yes, there are. The convention rules have the limits on how much you can time and how, and the procedure does not follow Robert's, it does to some degree, but it has some important modifications on how you deal with platforms and convention rules, et cetera, bylaws changes, et cetera. Now, this one is very, very much a problem in the Libertarian Party convention, so I hope you all pay attention to this, and this is suspend the rules. It's heavily abused because people use it either for their purpose, or they probably most of the time really don't understand what it's supposed to be. And that is to allow the body, the group, to violate its own rules except for the Constitution. That can be a Constitution, that can be the Articles of Incorporation. There's some debate on whether bylaws are a constitution or not. Some groups say yes, some say no. Most groups say no. I don't know if the Libertarian Party has ever decided where the bylaws fit on that. But that's the body to decide. But it's like a rule that's out there and we go, I don't know why we did the rule now, it doesn't work. Let's end it. Let's suspend the rule. It must be specific. You can't just say, I move to suspend the rules. A chair who knows what they're doing will say, which rule and for what? So be specific in it. I suspend the rules requiring 2/3 majority on here. I think 3/4 is better. And then I've moved that we then go to immediate vote and that take on this, and that if it's 3/4, then it'll take 3/4 to approve this motion. Or if it's takes a majority, you're asking to make it 2/3. The imagination is the limit on what it is, but you need to be specific. Oftentimes it's not, and so people don't know what they're voting for. And they also don't know if there's going to be a debate afterwards or not. When you suspend the rules, there is no debate when somebody asks to suspend the rules once they make a specific motion on that. You can suspend the rules by saying we'll have debate. But most people need to know that suspend the rules, you just go straight to a vote. No debate, and if the motion to suspend the rules is to vote immediately on the motion, and no one's had a chance to debate the motion, then you may have a flawed motion, because I've seen tons of motions and amendments that sounded good until the debate happened, and you go, oh my goodness, that's a bad idea. We left out 3 crucial words. So pay attention. One thing that I want to say and emphasize about this is that you need to get recognized by the chair. You need to write it down your motions. You need to get an amendments. You need to get them to the secretary. You need to have notes on your argument. I'm going to give you some tips for the convention. Now, one thing that will be in there, and we'll email this out to you, my little 3-page cheat sheet, but the convention binder with 298 pages or whatever will have this chart of 2 pages in it, I think it is, or 3 pages, that have the rules of order in precedence, which means which one's more important than the other when you consider them. And it will tell you whether you have to be recognized, whether it needs to be a second, whether you have debate on it, whether you can amend the motion, and what the vote requirements are. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when you suspend the rules, do you need to propose a replacement rule or next action when you call to suspend the rule?
That's being specific. Yes, that's a good question. Specific is what are you going to do? What are you doing and what are you going to do? If you suspend the rules and there's no direction on what you're going to do afterwards, that should be voted down. But I've seen those voted up and then everybody's scratching their head and mass confusion reigns. You don't want that. You just want to make decisions. If you don't like them, you leave, saying, I wish it didn't happen. But at least you go, but everybody had a chance to have their say about it and make a decision as the group. So yeah, state what it is that you want done. But this chart is very good and you need to have that and you need to have that out. Let me give you an example. Adjournment, I've already said that. You need to be recognized. You need to have a second for it. There's no debate, no amendments. Majority vote adjourns it. Previous question, recognize. Second, no debate, no amendment. Extend debate, need to be recognized, need to be a second. No debate, no amendment. or there can be an amendment on, yes, amendments are proper on extended debate. You just go beyond that. Suspend rules. You don't need to be recognized. Ah, there's one of them. You can just stand up and the chair has to hear you out. Mr. Chair, I move to suspend the rules. Don't have to be recognized. That's why people do that sometimes improperly, because they really want to say something because they're that important. Oops, did I say that? The next, the privileges. That's what we talked about earlier, which is about, you know, it's too noisy here. Chair, it's too noisy. You can just stand up and say that. You don't have to be recognized on that. Orders of the day. Let's get back to the agenda. You don't have to be recognized to state that out in the crowd. Suspend the rules. Divide the motion. You just stand up. I move to divide the motion into two parts. The first clause and the second clause, whatever it is. There are other things like that. Now, here are some tips for the convention. Write down your motion. Your resolutions actually take 2/3 votes. That's a change from Roberts. That's in the convention rules. Write it down, give it to the secretary. As I put in my notes, the secretary will demand it and she will hurt you if you don't do that. The chair will too. And because it's so important to keep confusion down and it saves time to have that. Have notes for your argument in support of your motion if it's something that needs some argument. Keep it short. Long speeches don't do any good, and I've seen some good ideas go to crushing defeats because the person just didn't know how to shut up. Warm-up statements usually hurt support and are improper. Let me give you an example. Hi, I'm Mark Rutherford, and I have done this for 85 years, and I've sold this for 95 years, and it's horrible what happens to the children at the border. Therefore, I move. Don't do that. Say, after you have moved to change and add the, you then go, the reason I say you add the in there is because it's confusing for the next convention not to have the. It's ambiguous, and here's why it's ambiguous. Give 1 or 2 points, sit down. Let other people argue for it or against it. You've made your main point. Start with your main point, end with your main point. 5 sentences is a great argument. No more than 20 to 30 words total. It would be excellent argument. Think it through. That's more effective and gets things done. And again, for things like points of order, move to suspend the rules, get to your point, no warm-ups. And I see too many warm-ups. I see that when people ask questions. I don't care what your background is. I care that we conduct business and that we get to business. This is extremely helpful, and you should do this if this is your first time or you're not familiar with this type of large group with Roberts. Look at other people. Most of the people will have some idea what to do. Talk to people who are in your delegation, who have been there many times. If you have something that you think you need to say, Mark, I think I need to say that, should I go up and do that? I'll probably say you do what you want to do, but make sure that you have the motion written down, give it to the secretary, and write some notes down for your argument. It'll take forever. Don't do things on the fly if you can avoid it. Oh my God, this is wrong. You write something down real quickly and it's horrible. Take the time if you can to get it done. It leads to less confusion and more people will be likely to support you. Anything that's emotional, knee-jerk, etc. at these conventions, anything I think I'm on the fly, even though I think I understand what it is, I'll vote it down until it is better. A lot of the things I vote down I don't think are priorities because of that. But if you can't get your motion clear, you can't get your argument clear, and I'm kind of iffy about it, then you've lost me, and you've lost a lot of delegates. And what you want to do is win. Why make a motion except to make a good point in argument, maybe for later or this convention? Why waste your time and other people's time? Again, I want to talk about suspend the rules. Be clear, succinct. It's been a huge problem, in my opinion, at national conventions for everyone I've been at. People coming up and they think the words are fancy and they don't know what it means. And most of these are good people. By the way, most of the people who participate, I think, are good people, well-meaning people. But there's a few people there who just don't understand Roberts and don't understand we need to get business done. Any questions out there, Tim? Anybody else saying anything? That's a quick run through about it. Any of the group here, Joe, Sam, anybody here have questions or anything to ask? I've got a question from one of the people here who's live. Drew, what's your question?
you have something, things go very quickly on the floor to avoid doing things on the fly. Let's say you have your interest sparked in something and you decide you want to explore that deeper. How would you recommend people get changes brought to the convention or to future conventions in a more structured way than on the fly on the floor?
Well, we've actually got a pretty good system with Platform Committee and Bylaws Committee. And if you're involved with, oh, sorry, I didn't know if that was heard or not. Okay. Let me summarize it. The question is, if you want to make changes, what's the best way to do it at the convention? And really the best way to do it at the convention is get in the process earlier, and it's really not that difficult if you're even halfway or a quarter way involved with the Libertarian Party, to see Facebook, Twitter, email, websites about all the Bylaws Committee and the Platform Committee. And they work for a good solid 9 months to a year beforehand. They send stuff out, you can say stuff, you can call these people and say, this is what I'd like to see change. That's highly effective. You do it on the fly in the convention, it's not very good. I saw the surveys. I think it was the Platform Committee survey, the Bylaws. I don't remember which, if both have done it, but they're out there. And I responded with a couple of things, and maybe it'll change things. Maybe it won't. But at least I got it interjected in the process. Does that answer your question, Drew? Yes. Very good. Yeah, try to do it ahead of time. Don't do it at the convention. And then one last thing is, if you really need to get something and things are moving fast, then I've crafted stuff before while waiting in line because I know it's going to take a few minutes before I get up there. Take advantage of that time, but take advantage of it. So that's what I have for today, and hope you all enjoyed the convention. After you've been to a couple, it becomes easy, but it can be very, very difficult at first.
I'd like to put a few words in here.
Yeah, please.
Okay. One thing you may notice, sometimes on a platform or a bylaws, the arguments seem very to the point, and the motions seem to flow, and everything seems to go in the way it should. Other times you're looking and going, what the heck is going on? So a little bit of a background. Usually there are two groups who are making a lot of motions. Those that are trying to run out the clock and those that are trying to shut down debate. We have had conventions where we've literally approved nothing from the Bylaws Committee. So we've got 3 hours, for instance, on the Bylaws Committee. If you've got somebody who doesn't want to see change, you're going to see a lot of amendments. You're going to see a lot of motions to division of the House is often abused, okay? What they'll do is they'll have a vote, and we'll say aye or nay, and the chair will rule, say he'll rule. The nays have it. Division of the House, okay? That means they want a standing vote. And again, the chair will rule. Then they'll say, you know, what is it, a count?
Standing count, yeah.
Standing count. And that means that they're going to go and count. Everyone will stand up and call off 1, 2, 3, 4, all 1,200 of us. Okay. The purpose of this usually is to run out the clock, because this uses up part of that 3 hours. Other times you see people who basically just want to shut things down. That's when you get call the question, boom, boom, boom. It's up to you. We, as delegates, you're sovereign, but you got to decide if you see these kind of tactics going on, okay, whether you're going to put up with them. Okay, I personally don't think you should. If some group is obviously trying to run out the clock, then I would vote against anything that's just eating up time. But that again, as a delegate, that's your choice.
All right.
Sam, did you have one?
Put the map of the Hyatt back up there. All right, we've heard about pretty much how business is conducted in the business meeting, and it will go on all day on Sunday, all day on
Or you said
the map of the, yeah, because I'm going to talk about where other stuff's happening here in a minute. Mark gave you a very good overview of how things are going to function during the business meeting. Joe talked about some dilatory practices that certain people might have if they want to get out of one segment of the convention. Those of you who are delegates, I assume you're going to be sitting in the convention hall for most of the business meeting and might leave occasionally to go do something else. But your state party has sent you there to do the party of the business of the party, and you'll enjoy that and be able to have a good time other times. For those of you who have alternates or have other things that you want to do, or if you're an alternate and not a delegate, there's going to be a bunch of other stuff scheduled simultaneously with the business meetings. So at the beginning of this conversation, I said that the main convention business is going to happen on the 3rd floor in both the Celestine Ballroom and Storyville Hall. There will be exhibits from exhibitors that have given us money to set up their displays for a wide variety of topics and materials, both where it says Celestine Foyer right there in front of the ballroom. And we had so many that we had to extend it into the Storyville Hall. About half of that room will be exhibits, and a media row is being set up in there now at the last minute because we've had a lot of media interest in this. Tim, if you want to go down, cursor down to the next level, actually go up to the next level, go up to the 4th level. In the convention book, when you get it, I think you went down, go the other way. I sound like my 4-year-old grandson.
Floor 2.
Yeah, no,
Level 2.
we're going to go to 4. If you're going to be going to any of the workshops, they are generally going to be on the floor above the convention hall, which is the Imperial boardrooms, and then the Imperial rooms 5A and B, and then 5C and D, where the bulk of the workshops and breakout sessions are going to be. I believe in Imperial Room 1, which is right at the top of the escalator, is where the first time ever silent auction is going to be. And there's going to be just all kinds of stuff in there that if you want to go bid on memorabilia from the past or services that people are offering, or just a wide range of different kinds of stuff that people are offering to the party to be auctioned off in the silent auction. That's going to be in Room 1 at the top of the escalator. And then the exhibits and the workshops and stuff will be primarily in 5A, B, and 5C, D. Also, the convention committee has rented rooms to different organizations. So you'll find the Texas Karaoke Party in one of those rooms on Sunday night after the debate. Now, Tim, if you go all the way down to the 1st floor, if you guys have bought a convention package and it has meals in it, those meals will be on the 1st floor of the Hyatt, all the way at the bottom in Elite A. So you go into Elite B, I believe. You go in through Elite A, pass through Elite Hall, then go into Elite B. That's where all the meal functions are going to be, as well as I believe in Elite A is where the outright Libertarian Masquerade Ball is going to be, and some other functions. The gala, if you bought a gala ticket, will also be in Elite B. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on during the convention, both inside and outside the convention hall. So we hope that you take advantage of as much as you can. I think we've got about half an hour left, 15, 20 minutes, something like that. Let's just generally open it up for questions, because I could only talk so much and Joe could only talk so much. Let's see if anybody has any general questions out there. And I believe that Tim is going to turn the microphones back on.
Okay, yeah, so I've got everyone's muted, but I should have the ability to unmute yourselves. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to hold off on that, guys. We're going to put Sam back on. He has one more thing to talk about.
Yeah, I forgot. I had mentioned that a couple of people have asked to speak on the duties of the delegation chair and what the delegation chair is supposed to do for each of the 51 delegations. By the way, there will be a room chart for the convention hall, and each delegation will be assigned to a specific place in the convention hall. So when you walk into the convention hall, you'll see some kind of a pillar or sign by what assigned table or group of tables your delegation is assigned to. The duties of the delegation chair are pretty well outlined in the convention chair's manual that was sent to all the state chairs. If you happen to be a delegation chair and not the state chair of your state party, then let us know and we'll shoot a copy of the delegation chair's manual out to you. Several of the things the delegation chairs are in charge of is making sure that only the delegates vote. You know how many delegates, registered delegates you have in your state delegation. and you know how many votes you should be turning in on each written ballot and how many people should be voting in your delegation. Make sure you know who your delegates are and make sure that people aren't sneaking in and voting by voice vote or even hand and standing vote when they're not actually delegates from your delegation. And then you will also be collecting ballots, organizing ballots during voting for officers. You'll be given printed ballots that you'll have to total up and then turn the totals into the people who are helping the secretary count ballots. There's a wide range of things for delegation chair. In Indiana, our state chair, Tim McGuire, has already appointed a delegation whip, Aaron Metters, to help him in being the assistant delegation chair and doing many of the things that that will happen simultaneously. You need more than one person if you have a good sized delegation. I think that's a synopsis of the duties of delegation chair. Joe, you've done it several times as well. Anything you want to add?
The only thing I'd add is if you want to maximize the impact of your state's influence, you should know where your delegates and alternates are during the business period. Elections in National Convention have been decided by one vote. So you need to know where your alternates are. I've been at conventions when I've been called out of the restroom to take a vote. It can be that important. So when you leave the floor, let your delegate chair know so that they can put an alternate in their place if there's one available. Try to stay close to the convention floor. I doubt it's going to be a problem since we have such a large convention, but another tactic that is often used is a quorum count. If people seem to start wandering away out of the main room for conversations or to get beverages, they can call a quorum count. And if there are not enough people in the room to make a quorum, then we shut down. And that has been used several times over the years.
Okay, Joe, thanks. One other thing that did occur to me that the Indiana delegation has already done is that somebody collected everybody's cell phone numbers and put it together in an emergency broadcast system for the Libertarian part of Indiana. So if there are votes and we don't find ourselves with a full delegation on the floor, then we could call out to people, reach out to people with texts or phone calls and say, hey, get back to the floor. There's an important vote going on. So at this point in time, Tim, let's just open it up for general questions from anybody and relay them to Joe and I or Mark, and we'll try to answer them as best we can for a while.
Okay, actually what I'm going to do is I'm pretty sure, like I said, that I've set it for everybody that can unmute themselves at this point. I ask you to be careful about doing that because if I already heard someone that did that because we can get some feedback. And then I'm going to turn myself back off and then turn it back on you and you'll be able to hear them as you talk.
There's a written one here that I'm going to go ahead and answer from Heather. Am I live? Is my mic live?
Yeah,
Okay, okay. So this question from Heather in the chat thing says, are there things you recommend we bring to the convention when we are there all day? Notebooks, pens, water, snacks, computer, phones, etc. What should we not bring?
Bring whiskey.
Mark Rutherford recommends bringing whiskey. However, there will be a bar in the convention hall. The convention committee has arranged for there to be a bar in the convention hall the entire time of the convention. My wife thought that was pretty bizarre, but and that won't be the only bar, but there will be a cash bar. So if you want to bring in your own flask, if you feel it necessary, that is for libertarians, it's fine. I think there are going to be water stands at the rear of the convention hall, so you don't probably need to bring bottles of water unless you're picky about your water. But I would bring whatever you need to be comfortable for a full day of sitting in a not uncomfortable chair with 3 people at a 6-foot table, because we've had so many people coming to this convention that we've had to condense. Also make sure that only your delegates are sitting in your assigned area. There are 2 rows of theater seats for about 150 people at the back of the hall where alternates and guests and stuff could sit. Make sure only your delegates are sitting in delegation, or else you're going to run out of room and be infringing on somebody else's space.
We had a question that might be very
go ahead.
now.
Sure.
Ohio has requests from members from other states who want to be seated with their delegation. What is the process to that?
That is entirely up to the state of Ohio. Each state has its own rules for allowing people to be seated with their delegation as a delegate. I'm assuming that's what the question is. Many of the delegations are already full. There are a few that have a few open seats left. But as to whether somebody is seated in your state as a delegate but they live in a different state, that's entirely up to your state's bylaws and your rules for the convention. So you would have to ask the people in Ohio if they have any delegate spots open and what their rules are for becoming a delegate from Ohio if you live in a different state.
Question from Renee. In the original tentative schedule, the registration table is open on Friday, but credentialing doesn't open until Saturday afternoon. Is that still the case?
I believe, actually I have the actual schedule in front of me. The registration check-in will be open in Imperial 2, I guess, until they move it to the Storyville room from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday. And then from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. starting on Saturday, registration and credentialing will both be in the Storyville Hall.
And people should be able to unmute themselves if anyone wants to shout out a question to you. Got any questions, guys?
I got my speakers muted. That's why I can't hear anything.
Oh,
Okay.
try it again.
Somebody asking a question?
No,
Okay.
I can't hear anything. So maybe nobody else has a question.
Here we go. What's it say?
I have a comment.
Register on Friday and come back on Saturday afternoon for credentials, right? Yeah. Or you could just wait to register there's nothing convention-wise going on Friday. Everything starts on Saturday morning. So you don't really need to be registered for the convention unless you want to just avoid the long lines and do it on Friday sometime.
Do they need to come back on Saturday to get credentials?
Yeah, if you're a delegate or an alternate, you have to come back at a different table, a different group of people will be doing credentialing in a different part of Storyville Hall.
Well,
I just can't believe that we've covered everything about this convention so thoroughly that none of the 40 or 50 people on this call don't have any other questions. Credentialing will be done on Sunday and all the way through probably right before the last session of the convention on Monday afternoon.
Can Erin comment on when she will? Oh, we'll have to follow up with Erin later.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So Diane's making the comment I was about to make. I think maybe people are just way too confused to even know what the questions to ask right now.
Okay. Well, if you are still confused after this, you could always shoot me a question on Facebook if we're Facebook friends, or at sam.goldstein@lp.org, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
We have a few other questions.
Okay.
Will credentialing be done Sunday a.m.?
Yes, I think I just answered that. Credentialing will be, there will be something at the credentialing table if you're a late arrival, all the way probably through Monday mid-morning. The final delegate count to the chair is reported at the opening of business session on Monday morning. And after that, I guess credentialing. Actually, technically, if you leave the convention early, you're supposed to check out with the credentialing committee so they could keep an active count of how many credentialed delegates are supposed to be on the floor.
When do they pick up the tokens?
The tokens will not be picked up. You will personally deliver your tokens to the token box.
No. When do they pick them up? When do they?
Oh, I'm sorry. The tokens will be in the packet of information you're given at credentialing, not at registration, but at credentialing, because they are only going to be given to credentialed delegates, not alternates.
Any newbie meetups at the convention?
Boy, I don't know. Drew, do you know of one? You lightened up when you saw that, heard that question.
Good question.
I'm sure that, notwithstanding the official stuff on the convention schedule, this will be my 9th convention. Joe, can you even count that high? How many conventions you've been to?
I've lost count.
And Mark's been to 9 or 10. There are always parties that happen to crop up at various times. One of the neat things the convention committee did at the very last minute was add a midnight showing from 10 to midnight of the movie Little Pink House, which is basically the house that was in the Kelso decision. This is a A-grade Hollywood movie that the producers approached us, and she's going to be in town and show that movie on, I believe, Saturday night after the reception breaks up. And after midnight, I'm sure there will be a wide range of parties. I've heard that Region 8 is having one already, And I'm sure the Libertarian Party of Indiana, thanks to Doug McNaughton up in the upper left-hand corner, will have one at some point in his suite. And maybe every night. We don't know about Doug. His thumbs up on that one. We've been to enough conventions that there will be a wide range of different kinds of things. Newbies, if you want to get a big sign that says "I'm a first timer," anybody want to join me for a drink? I'm sure you will have a bunch of people come up and say, "Hey, I'm a newbie too. Let's get together and compare notes."
Well, since we don't have too many questions, if you guys can give just any kind of final thoughts, maybe Joe, starting with you, especially, Joe, you especially have been to, I think, more conventions than any of us.
Right.
You know, everyone thinks that this convention is the one that's going to break or make the party. Can you give us some historical perspective?
Yeah, this is quite an interesting convention coming up. We're going to have some really interesting races, but we've had this before. And the party survived and the party's grown. In '83, David Berglund became our presidential candidate by beating none of the above by 1 vote. So don't think your vote won't count at a convention. NODA has tied for national chair and required new people to come in. That's one thing you should understand. In the races, Sam and I are both running for vice chair. Only Indiana has enough chutzpah to run 2 candidates for the same office. But what will happen is we'll vote, and if nobody gets 50% plus 1 on the first ballot, then the lowest vote getter will be dropped, and we'll go to a second ballot. And we'll do that until it comes down to either somebody getting 50 plus 1, or it's basically 1 person versus NODA. If, when we get to that point, most of the people prefer NODA to the person left, what will happen is all 6 of us who are currently running are then barred from running for that office in this cycle, and the nomination is open to the floor again. So if you don't like any of us, NODA is a choice. It's also a choice for the chair. NODA has often had a major impact on the chair. But understand, for the presidential, that is a different rule. If NODA wins in the presidential election, we will not run a presidential candidate. There is no opening it up for an extra person. So your votes do count. And that's why you have to, if you want to really have an impact, you have to stay near the floor, if not on the floor, during the actual voting. But we've had contentious before, we've had mudslinging before. The only thing is, this is the first time Facebook has played such a big factor in it. Trust me, anything that's been said about any candidate has been said before.
And Joe knows because he's been around since the beginning of time, or almost. Anyway, I want to thank everybody that's been on this call with us. This is our first time at doing this, so we kind of winged it, and I'm sure it could have been better organized. But I hope that all the people from other states, as well as those Indiana delegates, got some valuable information out of it. It's going to be a very wide open, fun convention. This is the third time I think I've worked on the convention committee. First time I've really been honestly so intimately involved with planning of the convention. This convention committee has worked together quite well. There's 6 of us, plus Betty Rose Ryan, the original chair. They had to resign for family reasons, that have put our heart and souls into this convention. We have some surprise stuff that's going on. Make sure if you're going to be around on Saturday, you're around the lobby of the hotel around 6 o'clock, because the New Orleans Marching Indians crew is going to lead a brass band parade into the reception hall, and we'll play for about a half an hour. We'll have some cool speakers in the reception hall if you've purchased a package that allows you entrance to that. At the very end of the convention, to encourage people to stay through the entire convention and not leave early, for the first time ever, we were having an after party. And the after party will include some band, some dancing, some fun. And we tried to get the Hyatt to let us have a dunk tank. It was way too expensive, even though we would have raised tons of money with certain people in the dunk tank agitating. But in place of that, we are going to have a pie in the face contest, not contest, but pie in the face opportunity, shall we say, fundraiser, where various people who delegates are kind of perturbed at might have monopolized the microphone too much during the bylaws of platform debate and violated the net by just speaking constantly and boring the heck out of people. Well, now's your chance to hit them in the face with a pie and bring your checkbook, because I think the bidding will be up there already. A couple of people have already mentioned the minimum bids of $500 to hit them in the face with a pie, and we can go upwards from there. It's going to be a great convention from beginning to end. Tim?
When's the parade, Jasmine?
That is going to happen on Saturday night. I believe that the opening of the, from 6:30 to 9 p.m. is the opening reception with Dr. Walter Block, Naomi Brockwell on Saturday. And the Golden Comanches is what they're called. I just read that in the schedule. I also want to compliment a couple people on staff. Over the past 4 or 5 days, Denise Lucky and Lauren Doherty and a couple other people have worked their butts off putting this convention book together. The convention book that Mark mentioned earlier and that I mentioned, it's going to be 139 pages packed full of information, of schedules, of Robert's Rules of Order, of brief biography and the notes for every workshop. 139 pages is a big endeavor, and they finally finished it up last night and it's going to the printers today. You will automatically get a copy of that if you have purchased a convention package of any sort, and then we're going to sell them, I think, for $25 if you've not bought a convention package, but it's really good, valuable information. I will give the audience one more shot at asking any questions that you might have. I will gladly, I'm not even going to read that one. That was pretty funny, though. Okay, any other questions offhand, anybody?
And you guys should be able to unmute yourselves if you want to voice ask a question.
Sam, yes, Sam will definitely be up for the pie in the face. I have yet to set the minimum standard. It depends on how well I do in the vice chair's race. If you guys don't elect me, then the price is going to be like really high because I'm not be happy. You know, we'll just have to see how it goes. How about you, Joe? You going to go up for pie in the face?
Sure, and I'm easily bought. Start at anything.
Thank you very much for joining the Libertarian Party of Indiana, first effort ever at new delegate orientation. We appreciate everybody from Indiana that attended and also from across the country. We had delegates from Alaska to Florida attending this thing today. Hopefully you got some valuable information. As I said earlier, feel free to contact me either through Facebook or at sam.goldstein@lp.org, and we will see you in less than a week.
And I just wanted to turn off your speaker. I just wanted to remind everyone one last time that Sam and Joe are both running for vice chair of the National Party. So seek them out at the convention and ask them a lot of questions. They put all the work into this today. If you see Mark Rutherford at the convention, ask him how his Secretary of State's race is going. The Secretary of State's race here in Indiana is our ballot access race. So please reach out to him. And I'm Tim McGuire. I'm the state chair of Indiana. If you have any questions or want to talk to me, feel free to search me out as well. Thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you again soon. 30.